Hi everybody, I hope you're enjoying Cal Day. Thank you very much for coming along to hear a talk with the wrong title. You may have noticed in here it said this was a talk about the Big Bang. But if you read the paragraph, it's really a talk about big history. And maybe that's because the person who made up the brochure had never heard of big history. Lots of people have never heard of big history. But I hope you'll stay anyway, and maybe you'll find that big history is even more interesting than the Big Bang. I hope you'll stay. So I'm Walter Alvarez. I'm a professor in Earth and Planetary Science in the Geology Department. And with me is Roland Saekow, who's a researcher with me. And our friend Robbie Bruins in the back, who is a big history student and making videos about big history in all of our lectures. So we want to tell you today about big history, and then we're going to show you something really cool that Roland invented when he was a student in the big history class. It's a way of visualizing everything that has ever happened in the past, all the way back to the Big Bang, right? And we call it ChronoZoom. Come in, sure, of course. We call it ChronoZoom, and we're going to show you that. But I need to give you a little background so you'll understand what we're doing before Roland gives you the demonstration. So, how many of you have ever had a class of a history class? Okay, almost everybody. Let me guess what it was like. Let me guess that it was rather restricted in the area that it dealt with. Maybe it dealt with the United States, or maybe it dealt with California, or with France, or something like that. And I'll bet it was restricted in time also. So it might have been the history of the First World War from 1914 to 1918. Or of the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars from 1789 to 1850. It was probably restricted in both time and space. And I'll bet it was interesting, but I'll also bet that it didn't put it into a broad context, so that once you'd finished that course, you didn't see how everything fit together. So that's one of the problems with history, and it almost has to be studied that way by historians, because you've really got to get deeper and deeper into more and more in depth in your subject. But it's too bad that it gets taught that way, because students don't see how everything fits together. Well, now there is an approach that some of you might have run across, which is called world history. Anybody had a class in world history? Okay, some people have had that. And the idea with world history is to tie together the histories of all the peoples all over the world and see how it all fit together. So it's a wonderful way to give the other dimension of history and get out of the hyper-specialization. Well, today there's a new approach which goes even farther than that, and it's called big history. And here, let me gradually unveil something. This is what we did before we had PowerPoint. Okay. So big history was invented by a wonderful man named David Christian, who is an Anglo-Australian historian of Russian history. He actually did a book on vodka. And David had the idea that if you were going to understand history, you needed to go all the way back, not back to the beginning of written history, not back to the beginning of human beings, but all the way back to the very beginning, to the beginning of the Earth, and even to the beginning of time itself in the Big Bang. If you'd like to follow up on this, I gave you a couple of references. David has a recent, very brief summary of history that's just wonderful. I'm reading it now, and I highly recommend it. It's called This Fleeting World. Or if you're interested in a big fat book that has lots more detail, he has one called Maps of Time. And then just recently, in fact just a couple of days ago, they put on the web a talk that he gave at TED. Some of you know the TED conferences. He gave an amazing TED talk earlier this spring, I think. And so that's available, and you can find out about big history from David Christian. So I got interested in this a few years ago, and like all the other people in big history, we think of David as the founder of the field. But I started giving a class here. I've given it the last 5 springs, and both Roland and Robbie have taken that course. And I found it the most exciting, exhilarating course I've ever given at Berkeley. It has students from every major that you can imagine and some that you couldn't imagine, and also it has people from freshman year to senior year, and they are so excited and interesting, and it's just wonderful. So what I'd like to do now is to give you an example of why you might want to get interested in big history. For me, big history gives me insights and understandings of things that I would never think about before and which tie things together. One of the techniques that we emphasize in the big history course is what I like to call historical mindedness, which means that whatever you encounter in your life, like Cal Day, like the University of California at Berkeley, think about it historically. Think about how did it come to be. It will deepen your understanding. So what I'd like to do is to show you a train of thought in historical mindedness that really, actually, the key point of it, I realized yesterday morning when I was reading something, and I thought, man, that's what I want to talk about at Cal Day. So you're hearing this before the big history class has heard about it. We'll get to that in a moment. But let's start here with a blank slate, and let's take a year that everybody knows, maybe the one year that everybody knows who's ever taken a history course is 1492. All right, let's think about that, because it turns out that that's much more than the year when Columbus sailed the ocean blue and discovered America. This is probably the greatest watershed dividing line moment there has ever been in history. And welcome to those of you who are coming on Berkeley time at 10 after. Okay, so 1492, it was Columbus, but all sorts of other things happened in that time, especially in Spain, because that is when the Christian king and queen, Ferdinand and Isabella, finally conquered Granada, which was the last holdout of the Islamic kingdoms of Spain. They did something really dumb right afterwards. They expelled the Jews from Spain, which was very, very stupid, and shortly after that they expelled the Muslims as well, any who wouldn't convert. And by doing that in one fell swoop, they kind of removed the economic underpinning of their country. And Columbus went off, came back with world information about what he thought was India, but it turned out that it was a whole new world. And the same year, a man named Antonio de Nebrija wrote and published the very first grammar of any European modern language that had ever been written. It was a grammar of Castilian. If you're just about to begin a whole empire that uncovers that much, your language needs to be in good shape. And Nebrija really set Castilian on its feet as an important, what became a world language. 1492. Same year, a Spaniard named Alejandro Borja became pope, and all sorts of other things happened that I'm learning about now in Russia as well. It was a fundamental watershed year. But here's the thing I want to point out, and that is that prior to that, prior to 1492, everything was absolutely different. And in David Christian's words, there were 4 world zones occupied by people. And they had no idea in any one of those zones that any of the other zones existed. So for David Christian, there was one huge one which we'll draw like that, which he calls Afro-Eurasia. And people there knew about each other. It wasn't as if somebody here had ever been to there, except for Marco Polo. But there were contacts across there. You know, these people were in contact with those, and those with those, and so forth. Then there was a second one, which is Australia down here, This is number 1. This is number 2. The third world zone was the Americas over here. Where was the fourth world zone? Pardon? Hawaii. Yeah, we've got it there, out there. So out in the middle of the Pacific were all of these islands, and none of these areas was in contact with any of the other areas. And it had been that way for a long time until Columbus. And then in the decades and a couple of centuries after Columbus, all of this area got explored, and all of these people who had been isolated were reconnected. Okay? And there were all sorts of terrible things that happened as a result. There was slavery, there was terrible disease. You know, the Americas were largely depopulated. It was not in any sense a great, wonderful thing. It led to all sorts of terrible pain and disruption, but it also led to the world that we live in today. So right now, if you want to be in email contact with your friend in India, you can just do it like that, and they're back and forth. So we've sort of come the whole way. But this was the beginning. In 1492 was the reconnection of all of these people who'd been separated. Okay, this is something that you could learn about in world history. Let me show you how you find out more about it if you think about it in the big history sense, the history of absolutely everything. First of all, how did all of these people get to be where they were in 1491, let's say? There is, any of you familiar with the Genographic Project from the National Geographic Society? You can, for $100, they'll send you a kit. You can take a swab of cells off the inside of your cheek, send it in, and they will tell you what your patrilineal and your matrilineal line of descent is, where those people came from. It's absolutely fantastic. And what they're finding out is that we started out here. All human beings alive today are descended from Africans. And that about 60,000, here's my thing, about 60,000 years ago, there was an emigration out of Africa. And the first big wave went along here, probably along the coast like this, and all the way out to Australia. People got there very quickly, probably by almost 60,000. Maybe this was a little bit earlier. These dates are uncertain by a certain amount. And then later, people spread out this way into Europe, around 40,000. And this was the time of the cave paintings in northern Spain and southern France that you've probably seen. And then eventually up here and around 15, 11,000, something like that, when sea level was low because there was so much ice in the glaciers on top of Canada, people were able to cross over into North America and spread out like that and all the way down through here. And eventually, Polynesians learned how to make sailing canoes and go to Tahiti and up like that. So we now know in considerable detail how that migration over all of the world took place. And in the process, in the 60,000 years or so of these migrations, languages shifted, cultures shifted, religions developed. People became so different from each other that at first, I guess they weren't even sure they were dealing with other people, but they all had languages. It turned out they could interbreed, so we're all in the same species. But think about this. In that 60,000 years, cultures changed extremely rapidly because we have these tools like languages, tools to use with our hands, and people could adapt to all these different environments. Everything from the frozen north of Alaska to Hawaii, to the rainforests of South America, to the deserts of Australia. People learned how to live in those places because they had culture and language and tools. And that took place in 60,000 years. When they got to those places, they discovered there were completely different plants and animals than they were used to, or than they had grown up. We started in Africa. Imagine how different Australia is with kangaroos and eucalyptus trees. So now we get into the heart of big history, and that is to realize that if we go back much further than this, let's go back to 180 million years ago, things were different 180 million years ago. Another great PowerPoint transition here. Voila! Anybody recognize that? What's that? Yeah, this half is Gondwana here, and the whole thing is Pangaea, which is all the Earth. And that broke up around 180 million years ago. So if you think about this, prior to this breakup, all of these continents were in contact with each other, kind of like Afro-Eurasia was 60,000 years ago. But here, everything was in touch with everything, so there were no isolated places where absolutely unique forms of animal and plant life, like marsupials, could evolve. So everything would have been kind of uniform all over there. So in order to get to the situation that people found 60,000 years ago, when they started migrating, where things were different, this all had to break up. So this broke up, and Europe and Asia went off that way, and the southern continents went this way, and Australia went there, and Antarctica went down there, and South America, North America. And that meant that by maybe 100 million years ago, all the continents were separated. They were all had life evolving in different ways, in different directions, producing different kinds of animals and plants as well. And so that is why when people migrated to those places, they found themselves in areas with completely new floras and new faunas. Of course, one thing that had to happen, and I've sort of been involved in that, is that, well, here, 65 million years ago here, Yucatan, better put it in there, there was an impact, and that got rid of the dinosaurs. So that that completely changed what the faunas were all over the world, but they continued to evolve in their own separate ways. So that in Australia you ended up with mammals who are marsupials, who are quite different from anything else. So the point then is, the point of all this is it gives you an insight into how change takes place in history. So for this separation of the continents and evolution to take place, evolution is a very, very slow process. You know, it's one generation after another, and if there's a tiny difference in genetic makeup in the descendant, maybe that will be more suited and have more descendants, or less suited and died out. But evolution is a very, very, very slow way of changing animals and plants. Once you get to have people who have big brains that can process and understand lots of information, have language to share it, have tools to allow them to live in different environments, change can take place very rapidly. So think what Columbus saw in 1492 when he landed on that island in the West Indies. He saw people who were very, very different from him. Their languages were completely different. Their religions were different. Their tools were different. Their ways of life were different. And that was because human brains and languages and tools had let them evolve so rapidly culturally evolve in those different directions in the mere 60,000 years. He also found animals and plants who were different from what he was used to. But that had taken place very slowly over the course of 100 million years because the continents were separated from each other. So that's the kind of thing we think about in big history. That's why I find it so exciting. It helps me to understand things. And so I would urge you, think about the world around you in a historical way. Try to develop historical mindedness. Okay. The real problem teaching a course like Big History is how do you get people to wrap their minds around things like these dates. 100 million years. You know, we might live 100 years if we're lucky. What's 100 million years? Can you imagine that? I've been dealing with this pretty much all my adult life. I still don't have a gut feeling of it. And I would have a hard time explaining this to the Big History class. And then 2 years ago, Roland, who was taking the class, came up to me after lecture one day and he said, I think I know how we could do that. I think we could do that with computer zoom technology. And Roland was doing an independent major in product design, and he knew how to do this. So Roland has been working with me for the last couple of years, and we've been developing ChronoZoom. And I'm going to turn it over to Roland, who will show you ChronoZoom. Thank you.
Yeah, so I love the course. I was an interdisciplinary studies major. It's to drop a course down that says we're going to study everything was just amazing. I knew I wanted to do that. But as we got into the course, just as Walter mentioned, the problem is how do you make a time scale? How do you make a timeline that would show this whole thing? I'm going to dim the lights, so excuse me. So if you have to make a timeline, I mean, you can draw on paper with a logarithmic scale maybe, but there's terrible distortion. There just isn't a good way to see it. So what I'm going to show you here is work we did a year ago with Microsoft Research and Microsoft Live Labs to do that zoomable timeline. So I'm going to give you a quick demo here. And what you see here is available on the web. I'm streaming it over the web right now. So you can just do a search, ChronoZoom, or chronozoomproject.com will get you here as well. So I'm just in a web browser here. I've got a mouse with a scroll wheel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start zooming out. We're here on a single day in the year 2000, the last day before year 2001 comes in at Times Square. And now I'm going to just pull back slowly. And now we can see a single day compared to a month. So there's all the days in the month of December. And here's all the months in the year 2000. And there's all the years in the 10th decade. There's the 90s going away. And here we are at the 20th century. So here's the 1900. We've already zoomed quite a bit. I mean, you can't even make out that single day anymore. But we're just at the start of our problems, really. So what I'm going to do is, these are kind of shortcuts up here. You can click on any one of them. They'll take you to a specific time period. We're going to go now from the 20th century back as far as the last 5,000 years. So written human history. So just be prepared for that jump. Keep your eye on this box. I'm going to click right here. And there's the 20th century going away in the corner. And here we are. This is the last 5,000 years. We can still see the box, which is comforting, I suppose. But this is example. So we've got Egypt on the screen. These are divisions of how Egypt could be divided, one way. Again, I'm just zooming in on my scroll wheel. Here's the Old Kingdom. You can see all the different divisions. Any little thing you see on here, we can go up and look at it. So in the 4th dynasty, with all these different pharaohs, here's the pyramids. Here's the pyramids and who built them, right? So you can just see there's so much things to explore on any one of these panels. And let me just show you some more recent things. I'll go over here closer. Remember, it's always going to be the present on the right edge. So that yellow box, that's the Apollo lunar program. Man makes it to the moon. And here's Walter's work where he discovered that the dinosaurs were taken out by an asteroid. So let me zoom out again. So you can see it's very, very recent. That was done in the 70s and 80s. So what we're going to do next, we're going to go from human history to human prehistory. Human prehistory is when the first upright, Homo sapiens, and going farther back than that, our first upright ancestors. And that's going to be an even bigger jump than what I showed you in the beginning, because now we're going to go from the last 5,000 years to 5 million years. Okay, so this is going to be a factor of 1,000. So be prepared for that, and here we go. That is 5,000 years. It's gone less than a pixel. And now you're looking at as far back as, you might have heard of fossils like Lucy, right? Very early forms of us, our species. But if I zoom out here, you'll see that Lucy is actually not the oldest. There are ones even older than Lucy, such as Ardipithecus. So Ardi was discovered here by Tim White and others at Berkeley. So let me zoom back out here. And so we've got this, this is an example again, but we've packed all sorts of different data in here. So again, you would just zoom into it at your own time, at your own leisure and pace. I'll zoom into here, these blue ones, so you can get a sense of Homo sapiens, right? That's all of us, as far back as we could, we could ever recover. And then here are the ones that came before, Homo erectus and so forth. So you can see, if you look at Homo sapiens, right, even on this scale of the last 5 million years, we're very recent. We're going to do another big jump. We're going to go from 5 million years to 5 billion years. Okay, it's still a factor of 1,000, but again, we're going to watch as everything we could ever know about humans goes away into the top corner, and now we're looking at all of Earth history. So what we have on the edge here, this kind of sharp white, that's when the Earth was formed, and now you're going right toward more recent times. So again, all sorts of data. Down here are the traditional divisions of Earth history. You might know some of these times if you are already interested in geology. But let me point out over here, this blue bar right here, or this white one, these are large impacts that hit the Earth. So these are ones that created really big craters. The bigger the arrow, the bigger the crater. So here's the Chicxulub one that Walter discovered that took out the dinosaurs. So dinosaurs going extinct is right there. On the scale of Earth history, that happened yesterday. Not yesterday, but that was very recent. So I always thought that was amazing because I always thought dinosaurs, oh, that's a long time ago. But no, on this scale, it was a very recent phenomenon. And let me just point out, if you thought this was a catastrophe for the planet, if you zoom back out, look at the size of this one. The Earth has seen some amazing things. ChronoZoom helps us to kind of see these in the big picture context. So one more zoom. This is going to be a small zoom. We're going to go from the last 5 billion years to all of cosmic history. So I'm going to click on that. So thankfully, it was a factor of 3. It wasn't too big. But now we're looking at 13 billion years on the left edge. And now you can see 5 billion years, what that looks like, 5 billion versus 13. So we've now gone all the way back out. And there is one more thing I do need to show, and that is the Big Bang. That's what the title of this course was, apparently, or this talk. So let me click down there. And we're blowing up the Big Bang here. This is not on a linear scale. Everything else you've been seeing was proportional linear. This is on a logarithmic scale. We had to do this because if you know about the very beginnings of the Big Bang, things happen 10 to the minus 43 seconds. Things happen in very small amounts of time. So just to give you some positions here, so this is following the expansion of the universe. So the universe was this tiny, small, dense, packed thing. And then all of a sudden it expanded, and then it's been getting bigger ever since, and accelerating as we've recently learned. But if you look at this line here, where it says lepton epoch, that's where electrons first come onto the scene. That is 1 second. Okay, so everything that the universe went from a tiny little ball, it blew up, and it's been getting bigger all in the first second. So that's why we have to show it on a logarithmic scale. And then that line afterwards, that's 3 minutes, and then this whole thing, we're looking at 1 billion years. So lots of things happen in the Big Bang. That's something we're focusing on for ChronoZoom 2, which will come out later this summer. I've been told that we will be able to go down, if we choose, on a linear scale to 10 to the minus 43 seconds. So wait for it. More things are coming. So I'm going to turn you to the present. I'm just going to point out a couple things on the way. We're going to go back to Earth and life history. And we're going to take a look at this family tree of humanity. So this is going to go from the last universal common ancestor, and it's going to keep branching off, leading toward us. So everything toward the top is leading toward us, and everything on the bottom is divergent. So here's a good example of where pisticons versus plants. And I'm just going to zoom out here, and you can see it keeps going, and there's this little dense cluster down there. That's not humans, that is primates. So here's the first appearance of primates. And that keeps going on, and Walter's added all sorts of little notes about what makes us different, dry nose versus wet nose primates, for example. So that's where we diverge from dogs, things like that. And we're going to keep going down here. Okay, what do we see? We see apes. We see gorillas and humans finally, and this 31 would go to humans and our extinct relatives. And that's how we got back to this box, our first early ancestors. So let's continue our journey back to the present. So I'll click here on human history. Now we're going to the last 5,000 years again with Egypt. Okay, and let's go back into the present. And you can see here we call the present the year 2000 because 2000 2011 is not so different on on this big scale. So there we go, December, and here we are. We are back in the present, and 11 years later, here we are in this room. So obviously what you've seen here could not have been accomplished with some amazing people besides Walter and everyone else here at Berkeley. Just want to play a quick video for you that we'll put some names on the screen where credit is due. So let me roll this as a short 2-minute video or so. And here we go.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before.
So thank you that was Microsoft Research and Microsoft Live Labs together with the people at Berkeley that made that possible. I'm going to give you one more example of a look into ChronoZoom, but on a human history scale. A lot of what I showed you was on a really big scale. We couldn't really get down to the details. So let's take a look at that. I'm just going to use a video version here so I can walk around and talk. But what we're looking at is an example of Italy. And this is one way you could divide Italy. This is just an example again. So here we've got Italy and pre-Roman Italy, and post-Roman Italy. And let's say we want to go look in at Roman Italy in detail. You can see that same concept. I keep zooming in, and there's further divisions there. And you can imagine we would offer many different interpretations of history. This is just one snapshot, one way of looking at it. So we've got early Rome, Roman Republic, and Roman Empire. And let's go in and look at the Roman Empire. This is going to showcase some fun things we can do with Zoom. Those little boxes are all statues, pictures of statues of the various emperors. And we're going to look at the 5 good adoptive emperors. And check out Hadrian here. If you want to go look at him, you can go look at him as close as you're comfortable getting to him. And that's just the beginning. We actually acquired some equipment that will help us take images greater than 1,000 megapixels. So this is an example. I didn't zoom into it, but if I did, you could go look at an individual brick somewhere on that wall. 1,000 megapixels, hard to wrap your mind around again, but if you stick around afterwards, I can show you some of those images. So again, if I zoom out, you can see it's just a little kind of small thing tucked away there in the Roman Empire, and you can go explore all sorts of places. This next example is kind of fun too. This is an example of what a PDF can look like embedded in ChronoZoom. First of all, you can see I'm very quickly diving into it. If I was to send this to you, and ask you to do this, it would take, scroll through, download it, and all those kind of things. Here I can pan smoothly through it. Even these complex graphs, which usually slow you down when you're reading a PDF, no problem, we can go into it. Everything remains sharp, it's fast. And if I look here, this was an example of what a gigapan could look like. So this is before we acquired that equipment. GSSP, that's a little marker on the ground. So if you had a 1,000 megapixel image, you could go down there and look at it. So I mean, this was before we got that equipment, but you can imagine you can look in that great detail anywhere on this document. So that's what it's like looking at a PDF. But there's one more fun thing that we could do with PDFs, and that is if we go into the references section here, references are hard to follow up on because you have to open a new window, search it, download that PDF, open it up in a new window. It's just, it kind of breaks your flow of, oh, I want to learn about that. So if you go into and look at this other paper by Walter here, and if we spy down there, and we keep zooming, here's that entire paper in full resolution, at your fingertips, no need for another window. You know what you want. Just go in and read it. It's the entire article. You can look at those maps, graphs, whatever you want, all at this breakthrough speed. And there it is, just like a little one sitting there in the corner. So now this example is not online, unfortunately, but everything else you've seen so far is available on the web. So, and that's where we were last year. So we've got some exciting things, but I don't have them ready to show you right now. But later in the summer, it will be ready. So to wrap it up in the last 3 minutes, I'm going to show you a video I put together just to even make the visual story of big history even more apparent. So we're going to get away from all these graphs and complex things. We're just going to take in some sights, we're going to take in some sound, and we're going to go through time. So 3 minutes, enjoy this last video.
Daddy started out in San Francisco, tooting on his trumpet loud and mean.
Suddenly a voice said, "Go for Daddy, spread the picture on a wider screen."
And the voice said, "Daddy, there's a million pigeons waiting to be hooked on new religions. Hit the road, Daddy, leave your common law wife. Spread the religion of the rhythm of life." And the rhythm of life is a powerful beat. Puts a tingle in your fingers and a tingle in your feet. Rhythm in your bedroom, rhythm in the street. Yes, the rhythm of life is a powerful beat.
To feel the rhythm of life,
To feel the powerful beat. To feel the tingle in your fingers. To feel the power in your feet. Daddy, go, go, go. Your wings and fly to your daddy. Take a dive and swim to your daddy. Hit the floor and crawl to your daddy. Daddy, beat up the rhythm of life, of life, of life, of life. Yeah! Yeah! Let me hear it. Yeah! Sock it to me. Yeah! Let it all hang out.
So that was a lot of fun, and that's what big history is like, and that's what it's like taking with Professor Walter Alvarez here at Berkeley. So that's all we have here for you. We'll be around to take some questions, but I did want to say, and Walter, if you would come to the front, thank you, Walter, for making this possible. If you hadn't taught that big history course, we wouldn't have never got to this point and been able to show this off to you and let people use it. So thank you, Walter.
That's kind. But without Roland, this idea, his ability, this is a mutual admiration society. Thank you, Roland. Thank you all for coming. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
This is very into infographics development. Is there also a way of developing how you're going to convey different sections?
Well, that's part of what the work has been doing right now in ChronoZoom 2. There will be kind of a tool that will let you create your own timeline, because we can't possibly create everything, even a default set. So there's an actual easy tool that says you want to create a timeline, drop in some pictures here, that will lock it in for you, and you can create your own history, your personal history, history of some other civilization, or anything like that. So yeah, but talk to us afterwards. We'll take another two. Yeah.
I had read something or heard a presentation about some research that's being done, and I think you referenced it, Dr. Alvarez, about the project where scientists are going out and testing DNA of people along the route of the Great Migration out of Africa, and kind of comparing the changes in that DNA back to the so-called original, South African human beings that kind of started the whole thing. Has that project been completed? Or?
It's underway. It is sponsored by the National Geographic Society, and in an inexcusable pun, it's called the Genographic Project. And it's run by a man named Spencer Wells. And he has a little paperback book that you can find that's called Deep Ancestry. And it will explain what's going on. They've also got detailed websites. And as I say, you can get a little kit that lets you send them some cells from your cheek, and they will go through it, and they will tell from mitochondrial DNA where your mother's 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 mother came from, and from Y chromosome DNA, all of the routes followed by all of your paternal ancestors like that. So it's an incredible thing. If you look on the web, there's also another project by a man named Stephen Oppenheimer, who was, I can't remember whether he's at Cambridge or Oxford, one or the other. And so there are websites about this, and it's an absolutely wonderful development in discovering where we came from and how we got to where we are now.
One more question?
I was thrilled to hear that you've struggled to understand deep time, because I just can't. So maybe it just makes me human. My question is about the organizing principle. You've organized this around time. Is there another way or another project to do something similar with place?
Place. Yeah, so map view was something that came up early on, because as soon as you get into human history or approaching human history, yes, it would be very interesting, if you could scrub through time and watch people moving throughout.
Actually, I'm wondering, can I look at a place and say, well, what's everything that happened here?
Right.
Here is
right.
a relative concept.
Right. So you lock down, you say Berkeley, and then you go back through time, and you see the University of California getting smaller and smaller because they built less and less buildings, and then there was flat land, and not right now. That's actually beyond 2.0 right now. But those are things that came up. People are like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did that, and so forth. So, yeah, you're on the right track. So we're gonna end it here. So let people go, but we'll be up front taking questions, and we're happy to talk. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.